Love is our true divine nature, and our heart serves as the intersection of the spiritual and physical, connecting our soul with our body as the conduit for anchoring our divinity onto the earth plane. Embodying our divinity is the key to our ascension and to manifesting our highest destiny in this life. The teachings of the heart are alchemy. Join spiritual mentor and channel Jennifer Spohr each week on a sacred journey to lift the veil to remembering your divinity and meet other beautiful souls who are living the path of the awakened heart. Hey everybody, I am super excited to welcome as a guest to the show today my dear friend Rachel Hardy. She is a sought after I'm off to a great start today. Rachel is a sought after intuitive coach and mentor, astrologer, and Akashic Records practitioner. For over 20 years, she has guided conscious entrepreneurs and creatives to make their next leap in clarity, soul purpose, impact, and income by unhooking hidden blocks from stress and trauma. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. So good to be here with you.
I'm so happy to be here with you and so absolutely thrilled to share your magic with all of the listeners today. Even as I was reading your bio, I mean, the work that you do is alchemy. It really is. It really is.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, I second that. That's why I'm into it. That's why I'm doing this, lady. It's why I'm here.
Magical stuff is fun.
Yes. I'd love for you to share with us more about the work that you do and how it's different from a lot of the other modalities out there, because I have experienced your work firsthand, and the combination of the somatic work with the Akashic Records and astrology is a really powerful combination.
Awesome. Yeah. I think that is kind of where I've finally really landed after a long journey, as many of us have been on, of doing a lot of different kinds of healing work and exploring and going deep into different modalities. And of course, bodywork was my primary vehicle for healing work for quite some time. And then that led me into the somatic work and the nervous system healing. And that was just so key and transformational. And yes, this is a missing piece on so many levels that people are looking for, whether they know it or not, from so many different levels. And so in the bringing together of the nervous system regulation work and the somatic work with the spiritual work, which is kind of the heart and soul of what I've always done, it's just kind of been more in the background sometimes. I was always, for example, doing energy work through all my body work sessions, whether I talked about it or not, or how much I talked about it or not. But bringing forward the spiritual connection of who we are, of the depths and the expansiveness of who we are as humans, as human divine beings, as the divine beings in these human bodies, being able to connect with the truth of who we are on a spiritual level and integrate that with very practical, like nitty-gritty, day-to-day, here in my physical body, what am I actually feeling and experiencing as I walk through my life, to really be able to marry those and blend those is the heart of where it's at for me. And so that's where bringing in the somatic work and the understanding of the nervous system pieces, along with really supporting people on their spiritual journey, is what I'm so passionate about and where it all kind of comes together.
Yeah, your work is very integrative, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this too. I mean, something that I feel that is still, largely missing from a lot of really what's talked about out there. You do hear about embodiment, right? But I've experienced these challenges on my personal ascension journey, and I know my clients have as well, is that, there's a big difference between intellectually understanding something and being able to actually really integrate it, that feeling, that knowing into your body, and then, taking action and manifesting, onto the earth plane from that space, right? Versus from the mind. That's where I feel that your work is extremely powerful.
Yeah, I think you're right that there is it's so challenging to put words around some of this, because when we come from and live and operate so much from a mainly intellectual and kind of head first sphere, and then we have our spiritual practices, but sometimes there's this gap between
Mhm.
the way our minds and our intellects and our thinking mechanisms work, and then there's this way that we go into our spiritual practices, but what's the space between those, and how do we actually bring together the mind and the body? And it almost feels like a cliche, to say bring the mind, body, spirit together. Like you say, that's the words are out there, but what does that actually mean? I'm with you on like that being the question that I'm constantly living into, of how do we integrate this, and what does it mean to know on some level that I am a divine being with incredible creative power to manifest
Yeah.
whatever? Like we know that on some level, and then we're here living in these bodies and bumping up against these challenges and sticky spots and glitchy spots, and like how do we bring that together, and getting into the actual meeting place of where those collide or integrate, and really fleshing out like what it means to live this spiritual power in our bodies, in our daily lives. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the answer to that is, being, or what that place feels like is unique for each person based upon their path. I know that I speak frequently about knowing what truth feels like in your
Mhm.
body, right? It's like, and you even mentioned earlier too about, there just aren't words for like all of the energies. And that's the thing too, is that as humans, we love to, and I don't know if I would even say that we love to, right? It's more of a programming thing, a conditioning around that we have to apply a specific label or meaning to everything. And I think that in of itself is one of the key components of of evolving in our ascension journey, is our ability to go, okay, well, you know what? I'm just going to be open to whatever I experience, even if I can't really totally understand what it means or what it is.
Totally. And I love that you're saying that. That is, I think, exactly one of the things that's so powerful, and why I love somatic work so much, is it actually is this other language that isn't from the head. And when we can get into and actually learn the language of how our body speaks, and I don't even mean that on an intellectual level. I don't even necessarily mean here, what does it mean when my finger is feeling this, although that's great too, but I'm talking like getting into the actual feeling places of how our body experiences and feels. Like there's a whole world there, there's a whole language of its own there. One of the things we sometimes talk about in the somatic world is that the language of the reptilian brain is sensation, and we're working with all these different parts of our brains when we get into working with the body. And it's so interesting because we have these brains that have developed at like different rates and aren't always talking to each other in the most connected way. And so to your point about the wordless places. I love working in the wordless places. And I think that's exactly why I'm so drawn to doing the somatic work, is it actually gives us the tools and the clarity and the specific paths to get in and really tangibly work in these wordless places. And then when we've shifted a bunch of energy to perhaps bring it around and tie it into the bigger understanding and the aha moments. But sometimes we actually have to drop out of the mind pretty completely to get into those places that are so deep or that are not actually attached to our cognitive functioning. We actually need to drop into these places where we hold stuff, where we store stuff that isn't attached to our mind. So going off on a tangent there, Heather,
No, I mean,
whole
it's
rabbit
all
hole we could
important.
do, but
Yeah, it's all important because all of our bodies, right, are interconnected. And what you said about how one area may not be communicating with the other is so key. It's almost like, not almost, I mean, we, many of us treat our bodies, or have been in a space on our journey where we treat our bodies as if, even within our body, right, it's several separate entities, and it's really not. Every part of our body is interconnected. And I'm gonna sing your praises some more, because our conversation's actually reminding me of a session that I had with you a while back. And the focus within part of that session was around the solar plexus. And one of the things that I experienced in that session is the realization that that part of me wasn't, and not just my chakra, right, but it was also not just the energies, but the physical part of the body wasn't totally connected, like to some of the other parts of the body, right? And it's really like, we're, I say we're all a team, I mean me, my body, like all the parts of my body are all a team, right?
Yeah.
But in that moment there was a distortion where it was like that part was on its own island,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. But restoring the interconnectedness of all of that.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah, so good. So good. But that's what we do. You know, there's a universal law, right? As above, so below. And it's so true. I mean, that's what we do. We tend to treat everything. We're tend to be conditioned or programmed to treat everything as a separate, as I'm, the word for it is eluding me at the moment, but we segregate, we separate, we everything. It's like, you know, if we think money is a problem for us, or finances, I bring that up as an example because it's a thing for so many people, right? We treat that as something that's isolated, where it's like, whether we want to face the truth of this or not, in how we show up one way is essentially in how we show up in everything. And that's not to say that, you know, one area of your life could be, you could deem as healthier than another, and that could absolutely be true for you too. But there's always an underlying theme, right?
Yeah.
So it's always good to be open to all aspects of our being when we're exploring ourselves.
Totally. Yeah. So important and so good. And I think that getting into the body is such a piece of exactly that, the coming out of the compartmentalizing or separating into all these different pieces and feeling and experiencing what's happening in this energy system here and how's that flowing out into the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So good. I could talk about this with you for days.
There's a lot here.
Yeah, there is. What inspired you to get into this work, and to combine essentially these modalities?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So inspired to get into this work was really very much my own personal path, and starting with going through a lot of trauma and a lot of long-term health conditions that I dealt with for most of my life, and that only have actually fully healed pretty recently. So I trying to give like the super sort of short version of this here.
Like, how do I make a long story short?
Yeah, how do I make a long story short? I spent a lot of my young life and teen years and 20s dealing with chronic health conditions that modern medicine had no good answers for. And so that led me into the alternative health world and endless searching. And, somehow along the way, I created this bodywork practice and energy work practice and started doing all of this work for people who were also having challenges with their bodies or dealing with chronic pain conditions, or things not working right or not functioning optimally. And again, it was part of my own personal path that led me first to the nervous system healing work as a super key piece of both transforming a lifelong autoimmune condition, completely healing that, healing the clinical depression that I lived with for much of my life. And really, again, this piece of doing the nervous system healing work was so integral to turning around my own health and life. And it also solved a lot of problems and answered a lot of questions that weren't being answered, even in, the pretty effective work I was doing. I did myofascial release for people with stuff going on in their bodies, and was having quite a lot of success with healing all kinds of conditions. And yet there were missing pieces. And again, bringing in the nervous system piece answered a lot of questions, solved a lot of problems, meaning there were things that didn't make sense that suddenly did. And ultimately, it really came around to tying in the spiritual work as well, and integrating the spiritual work and the nervous system healing and all the levels of our physical healing. I guess I'm saying that I was on this path of integrating all of these for myself and for clients, and it kind of just kept coming together more and leveling up more. And everything I do and teach, I would say, has ultimately been inspired by my own journey and my own path and my own very strong need to solve the things and heal all the things and bring it all together. So yeah, that's the best short answer I've got about being inspired into this path. I mean, it was my own healing path, and it was all the needs of my clients that I was coming up against and seeing and working with every day, and kind of a constant deeper search for answers. I mean, that's what it's all been. It's been an ongoing, let's continue to find the answers to this paradox of being these divine beings in human form. Let's find these answers. Let's do it.
We've spoken a lot about being in the body and integrating and healing, and you're also a tremendously gifted in the field of astrology, and you've actually created this really magical program. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Okay. So my interest in astrology goes way back to starting as a teenager, kind of seeking from another angle for answers and meaning and clarity. And there was a way that this language of myth and archetype that we work with in astrology spoke to me really clearly when things weren't making sense. And there's a way in which these greater energy patterns, I'm going to say, could come through and land in a way that brought clarity, even when nothing else made sense. So I was very drawn to this language and this world of astrology, and to just learning everything I could about it, and understanding best words I have are like the greater message that wanted to come through, the greater information that wanted to come through in any moment, which can be read by looking at a chart, looking at a person's natal chart, looking at current transits, looking at how they interplay, learning to read and understand like what was coming through there. What's the truth? What's the higher message? What's the healing? What's the shift that's happening? Mm-hmm. So I've been on a path of working with that for many years. And there was, again, a place where like these pieces just wanted to come together more, because something about the astrology world, which kind of goes back to what we were talking about, is it does usually tend to be very heady and very information, and there's lots of insights, which is amazing, and all this cool information coming through. But what we ultimately want is for this information to be able to land in the body, to be integrated in our lived experience in a way that changes and heals and shifts and creates the transformation that we are looking for, which is probably why we went to the session or went to get a reading. Like, we want something to change, or we want something to shift. We want the information, but that's only the starting point. And so what I'm really up to with the embodied astrology program that I've created is integrating how to read charts and understand these energy patterns and get the messages and get the clarity. And also, how do we integrate that in the body, both for ourselves and for our clients? A really big thing that's a part of my work is understanding and working with this place that we hit. And I think we've all hit this. You'll know what I'm talking about, Jennifer. I think your listeners will know what I'm talking about, when we're going along and up-leveling and expanding in big ways, and we hit this crazy turbulent place because there is so much expansion happening that it gets all chaotic. And a piece of what's actually going on is our physical systems have a certain capacity to hold energy. Like, they have a certain amount, our nervous systems literally have a certain amount of energy that they are used to holding and know how to hold. And even when a whole lot of good stuff comes in, there's a way in which our nervous systems can interpret that as a threat and freak out a little bit, and things can go into these chaotic and sometimes dysregulated patterns. And that's a piece of what can be happening when we hit these up-level expanding places that get super bumpy. So all that to say that knowing how to understand and work with this phenomenon, like what we might call the upper limits phenomenon, or the hitting the expansion bumpy places, knowing how to work with that, I think, is one of the most important things as practitioners, as coaches, as healers, that we can do and know and embody and understand for supporting our clients, because our clients are going to go through these up-leveling places. And so when we can understand how to work with these kinds of glitchy spots and what's going on, that's going to give us huge mileage in whatever kind of work, first of all, we're doing for our clients. And if we're specifically talking about astrology readings here, we don't want to just give them information. We want to give them transformation. We want to give them both the insight and the inner transformational experience and the inner capacity to move through these kinds of shifts and portals and up levels that our clients are moving through. So that's what I'm really up to in this program, is bringing together the somatic work, the understanding of this nervous system journey and the glitchy places that we can run into, and how to integrate that with working with astrology to support your clients in both insight and transformation.
So good. So we'll have all the information for the program in the show notes for those who are interested in learning more. And are there any key dates that we need to be aware of?
I am running a live round of this beginning in the first week of October.
Okay.
So that would be before then would be when to jump in.
Okay, good. And I also believe you included a special discount for anyone who signs up from listening to the show, right?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so definitely want to check out the show notes for those who are interested in learning more about the program. And Rachel's work is absolutely not just informational, it is also transformational. 1000%.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Rachel, in closing, what else are you feeling guided to share?
I am, feeling so many of us on this incredible expansion journey right now. And by right now, I particularly mean like the last couple of weeks at the time that we're recording this, Jennifer, which is first week in September. And I know it'll go out, in a bit. This episode will go out shortly. There's been some bumpiness. There's been some major energy going on. And obviously lots more than we'll have time to go into in a quick closing. But what I really want to send is an encouragement, and I'm going to send it telepathically because I don't fully have the words, but I've just heard from clients and from colleagues and so many in like really interesting, really challenging places lately, like really bumpy energy, sometimes even feeling stuck. And so the one thing I want to share and remind is, well, again, when we're going through these up-leveling places, it often feels like we hit our limits, like we hit the limits of what we know how to do at this level of ourselves. And maybe if things feel really challenging, bumpy, at the edge right now, it may be because you are at the edge and there is that next level coming in. And so that's the biggest thing I would love to just offer, is a reminder that the bumpy, challenging feeling places are simply our human self having this experience. It's completely okay. And it's very likely, given that you're on a conscious path, as someone here listening is, it's very likely that this bumpiness is actually like that portal to your expansion. Like it is the path forward. You're not doing something wrong. You are right in the midst of that turbulence, and it's okay to relax into the not knowing of the expansion of what's beyond, because it's big, and that's why it feels like a lot.
Yeah. Oh, such wise advice. Thank you. And I concur. The energies are, yes, absolutely bumpy. And that's advice that can be received by everyone, right? Because everyone's on their own unique journey, and it's not necessarily for beginners. We all have, no matter how evolved we consider ourselves to be, there's always new opportunities for growth and evolution and learning. And we all absolutely have our own version of bumpiness happening.
Yep.
For sure. And absolutely, just being at peace and okay with that and embracing that as part of the journey definitely provides for more ease and grace too.
Totally. And I think it's so good to normalize that bumpiness and not have it be something weird, wrong, that you're the only one going through. Like, no, like you said, we are all,
absolutely. Yes, for sure. Rachel, what an absolute pleasure. Thank you. So honored to have you here to share your wisdom and your magical work today.
Thank you so
Appreciate you.
much, Jennifer. Such an honor here.
Thank you for listening to Path of the Awakened Heart. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or pathoftheawakenedheart.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about living with an awakened heart and navigating your ascension journey, visit me at jenniferspore.com.